series talking about the classics because we both enjoy the classics as performers. And people may question, do the classics have a place in performance? Do they have a place in culture right now? Is it even worth it money-wise to invest in that? And so lots of questions, and even in school settings,
right?
Is it worth studying? Should we have art programs? And so we're just going to address a little bit of that and maybe just share some of our passion and reasons why we like the classics.
Because obviously we think it's yes to all of those questions.
Right, yes.
So when we say, I'm an opera singer and she's a Shakespearean actress, people are like, whoa! So we want to dissolve some of the mystery today about being a performer who loves the classics, and it's kind of what we do.
Yeah. So we wanted to do a small introduction to that today of maybe some of the whys behind it, and then break it down and look at specifics of things that we enjoy in that. So one of the things I think is really interesting is that the classics, Shakespeare, his work is produced around the United States. In most theaters, it's one of the foundational moneymaker pieces. It's a part of the season and schedule. So financially, it can be a really big part of a season that a company has. Now, there are modern pieces and new works that are being produced and made. We're producing our own new works, but we think that having that history of understanding where we've come from is really important. So that's the first thing that I would say is we like to know, where does our art come from, and where can we learn from people who have mastered it or people who have stood this test of time, I guess.
Plus it helped us create a form.
Yes.
Otherwise, our collaboration wouldn't really work. She knows her form, I know mine, and then we break the rules to make it our own.
Yeah.
But if there weren't rules to break, or if we didn't understand them, it would be a little bit of a messier collaboration.
When you think about classics, people will think about, well, it's kind of stuffy or uptight. But when I see a really great production of a Shakespeare show, it's actually not those things. And often I've been with students and they see a live performance for the first time and they're like, oh my goodness, it's so crass, or they're shocked by things. And so Shakespeare wrote for his contemporary time period, but what I think makes his pieces last is that he understood people. And that's what we love about, I think, the classics, is that it's work that understands what it means to be human. So betrayal, loss, joy, love, all those things that no matter what time period you're in, no matter what culture you're from, you can understand those pieces. And so I think good classics that last have those elements, and that's why we like to study them, because then it helps us think about how can we create work that has that today.
Right, and opera is very similar, at least the storylines. These people are so human, and their emotions are so big, you're drawn in to their stories, no matter what time period they're from, even no matter what language they're in. Yeah. That's definitely a barrier. I'll talk about that later, the language barrier for opera. But it is the humanity in the pieces that lasts. And I think that's one reason. So you have Shakespeare. I feel like Mozart is such a big name in opera because his characters were so lovable. Or you hate them. I mean, there's just, his character development is outstanding. And that's what people like to see.
And so the classic may be, the barrier may be the language. It may be that the language is older or a different language. But I find that doing the work, you get to this beautiful story and someone you're like, wow, they lived, a long time ago, but they understand what it means to be human. And there's that work that you have to do a little bit, but it's so worth it.
Absolutely.
It makes it fun. And what I love about the study of maybe the classics, or there's always something new to learn, where sometimes I may get a modern TV show and I love it for the first moment and I'm laughing, but I don't want to watch it again. But there may be pieces that I read and I'm like, wow, there's so much in there that I have to keep coming back to get more. And that's just personally what I enjoy, that challenge of it.
Oh, yeah.
But also the classics, you'll see them, they come up. Lots of different opinions about the classics and why people go about it. One thing, and from a business standpoint, that's great about the classics is it's cheaper. So you don't have to pay.
They're free.
They're free.
Dead guy stuff. It's good and it's free.
Yes, so that's really wonderful because we have great text and then we can use that and work with it and adapt it. That's
a lot of music too.
There's so much. So that's one thing, if you're thinking just from a business standpoint, is really great to have those resources and use it in those ways. And I mean, we like it, but that's another helpful piece.
Yeah, in fact, we can include, there's a public domain website for music of all the composers that all of their works have fallen into public domain, so we can post that for you.
Yeah, and so those are some just kind of business sides, practical sides that's helpful to use the classics and put them in there.
It's a great reason. They're free.
It's free, right? So that's really nice to have that piece, but also just to learn from other people and to realize that there's so much in the world, in history, other cultures, that we can learn from and put into our own work and grow in the midst of that.
And it's always good to know your history. So if your art form is musical theater, it doesn't hurt to learn about some opera or vaudeville. I mean, it all kind of grew out of that live performance with singing and speaking. It's just good to know your history, where you came from. And to me, I eat it up. Like, that's part.
I'm super nerdy.
Yeah, we are super nerdy. I love the music history part because I'm like, oh wow, like this art form, it came out of church music and then it came across the ocean and it turned into jazz. Like, and it's just really cool to know your history. And that's in general, like, as a country, you should know your history so you don't repeat it. So knowing the history of something, then you know the rules. And then every composer that's really outstanding knew the rules so well, they knew how to break them well.
Yeah.
And then they became interesting and new.
Yeah.
So every movement of music became new because they knew where they were coming from, studied it, and then progressed from there. So that's a big reason to know. If you want to make new work, you have to know what was made in the past.
Yeah.
Literally.
But there's also a lot of, and we'll start sharing in more detail, there's great ways that people have taken classic texts and then had fun with them.
Right.
And said, let's put it in maybe a contemporary setting or just
Like
play with it.
Shakespeare's Women.
Yeah.
Our first show is absolutely
There's so much.
It's very silly. There's lots of tulle and tutus and
yoga mats. I don't think Shakespeare envisioned that. It was totally yoga mats.
Right.
Yeah.
But it's perfect. And it's the original text.
Yeah.
And some of his texts that have been said in opera, and we just have a blast.
Yeah. So have fun with it. And then the core again is it's about what it means to be human. And that translates across languages, across time, cultures, and that's what we like to hit on. So if you are interested in using classical text in your work, or you've done that and combined it, or you're just like to nerd out with us, so we'll be talking more about that in this series and how that can affect your business and knowing where you're coming from as you create and brainstorm. It's just a great resources to have.
We're also hoping, so say you're like us, you love Shakespeare, you love opera. I have tons of friends, young people that love opera. We're opera singers, that's what we do, and the world doesn't understand us. So what we're hoping this little series does, show your friends, because I'm going to do a segment just on opera, how to relate to it, how to kind of break it down. Sarah's going to do something on Shakespeare. Show your friends. Be like, before you come to see my show, hey, watch this video where they kind of break it down and it's not such a mystery. So that's what we are really hoping from this series.
So it's not so scary, so that you have an understanding. I know I have 2 younger sisters. Well, I have many younger siblings. We'll skip that part. So I brought some of my sisters to see some Shakespeare shows, and we talked about it beforehand, and they did some monologues, and then they can understand it, and they glean so much. And so they were talking about studying Shakespeare in their English class, and they're like, we totally got it. Like, we understood it. So they had a grasp of it.
That's great.
So you get that background. It can be really fun then to learn more, and it builds bridges to other things in the world.
We like building bridges.
Yes.
Yes.
So share with your friends.
Yes.
Nerd out with us. And then even if you have that English class and you're like, I don't know about Shakespeare, or you're in music class and you're like, what is opera?
Music history so boring.
Yeah.
It's not.
It's super, like, there's so many crazy artists and stories.
Yeah. When you learn about their lives, you're like, oh, they're people too.
Yeah.
Artists are people too.
Yes, we are. Crazy. So we hope that you'll share and then have fun, and that you can see the excitement that comes into studying our history in the performance world. All right, thank you. Don't forget to find us on our website at amike.org, on Twitter and Facebook, and you can subscribe and get more of these videos and series that we do, and find out more of our crazy
Goofiness.
our goofiness. Yes, as we nerd out about performance.
That's right.
All right, thank you.
Bye. I'm really hungry.
Really hungry. So we'll put that in. I'm really hungry. We don't do well with hungry.
No.
Neither of us.
Hangry.
Okay, super hungry. So thinking about the classics in pieces that we do today.
Yes. You
What
wanna
else?
hold that thought?
Hold that thought.
Because it's my grandpa.
Oh, yeah, perfect timing.
Perfect timing. Yep. Dinner time. So I'm hangry.
It's very hungry. Grandpa's calling and we're hungry.